The meniscus tearing taskmaster Tom Thibodeau is no more. The meniscus tearing taskmaster is being used as a scapegoat. The meniscus tearing taskmaster has been kicked out by his old agent or by his owner. Which one is it? The blame game is being thrown around. There is misinformation all over the place. But the main thing is the Knicks were eliminated by a team that did not have any significant changes in the offseason. The Knicks lost to the Pacers last season in the second round in 7 games. The Knicks did a complete overhaul of their starting lineup and their rotation. Out goes DiVincenzo, out goes Hartenstein, out goes Julius Randle. In comes in Mikal Bridges, in comes in Karl Anthony Towns. And that Knicks team, that new Knicks team, that vaunted Knicks team, that deeper Knicks team, that more talented, more skilled, better Knicks team lost to the Pacers again. And this time, only in 6 games. Couldn't even push them to 7 like the squad last year. But let's not waste any more time. The meniscus tearing taskmaster Tom Thibodeau. Everyone is clamoring of how great Tom Thibodeau was as a coach for the Knicks. 226 wins against 174 losses. That's a stupendous record. That's a great record. 2021 Coach of the Year. 4 playoff appearances in 5 seasons. 24-23 playoff record. That's not that good, but it's the Knicks. The bar is very low. Back-to-back 50-win seasons. Again, for franchises that are, inept, for franchises that are bereft of relevancy, that is amazing. For franchises that are accustomed to winning, back-to-back 50-win seasons is light work. But in Knicks land, this gets propped up as prophecy. This gets propped up as he's the greatest coach of this generation. Because the bar is that low. The bar is so low that Mayor Eric Adams has to tweet out his gratitude for Tom Thibodeau. I didn't realize he was back from DR chasing the mommies, but apparently Mayor Eric Adams is back and he's tweeting about the meniscus tearing taskmaster Tom Thibodeau. It's so bad that everyone is running to claim that they have information about the firing of the meniscus tearing taskmaster Tom Thibodeau. Mike Francesa, a sports radio legend and relic, he's a ghost. Nobody cares about his show. Nobody watches his show. But yet and still, when it comes to New York sports, if that's all you care about as a New Yorker, and you're of a certain age and a certain demographic and of a certain hue, you're still paying attention to him. He's jumping out the window saying he has it on good authority that Leon Rose alone, is the key word there, alone fired Tom Thibodeau. He is 100% confident about this. Meanwhile, his old radio partner, the Mad Dog, who is now yelling in the cameras on the 4-letter network, has it on good authority that James Dolan, the owner, alone fired the meniscus tearing taskmaster Tom Thibodeau, and he is 100% confident about it. This is what happens in the sports media landscape. When a story breaks, everyone has to act like they knew this was coming. And not only do they have to act like they knew that this was coming to retain their status as an authority, they then have to jump out the window and make outlandish claims like this. Does anyone care that this old relic on his live stream, or not even on television, he can't even get on television no more, on a random ass live stream, does anyone care that this man has it on authority that Leon Rose is the one that did it? None of that actually matters anymore. This is what happens when you're still chasing the story. This isn't the 90s. This isn't the 2010s where you have a 6-hour radio block to where you can have all the beat reporters come on to your show and try to give you the tea. You're old. You are past your prime. Yet and still, you're finding a way to find some relevancy, but only to a very niche, extremely niche market. This is ridiculous, okay? It doesn't matter if it's Leon Rose. It doesn't matter if it was James Dolan. The bottom line is that the meniscus tearing taskmaster, Tom Thibodeau, has been fired. And why are Knicks fans up in arms? Why is the NBA world shocked that the meniscus tearing taskmaster, Tom Thibodeau, was fired? Well, because if we look at his record in comparison to other Knicks coaches, again, of this last generation, he by far has the highest win percentage. You go to Mike Woodson at 188 and 109. 109 is 79 in 188 games. He has the 58 win percentage. But Tom Thibodeau did it for longer, 5 seasons compared to 3 for Mike Woodson. But look at this list here. David Fizdale. Hey, I'll never slander David Fizdale because salute to Mrs. Fizdale. If you know, you know. Jeff Hornacek, that disaster. Kurt Rambis, Derek Fisher, Mike D'Antoni, Isaiah Thomas, Zeke, Larry Brown, Lenny Wilkins, Herb Williams, Don Chaney, Don Nelson. This is what the bar was in Knickland. So any semblance of coaching, any semblance of scheming, any semblance of having any type of wherewithal or knowing what to do from a basketball standpoint, you were going to be at the top of this list. And it's not saying a lot to be at the top of this list, but because Knicks fans have not had a championship to celebrate in over 50 years, this is what gets deemed as GOAT status. This is what gets deemed as, I am upset that we got rid of the guy that gave us back-to-back 50-win seasons. The Bucks have done that. The Hawks have done that. A whole bunch of franchises that have been deemed to be lesser than the Knicks have done that. But that's how bad it's been for the Knicks. Shams jumped out the window, had the tweet, had it first because Woj took his ball and went away. But Shams has given us some detail. The Knicks are focused on their pursuit of a championship and believe a new voice will serve as the focus for the organization's next step. After 5 seasons with the Knicks, Tom Thibodeau is out as head coach. Now, there is a mixed response from Knicks fans. A lot of them are shocked. A lot of them are upset. But there's also a group that are going the other way, that they think, yeah, it was time. Here's why I think the fans just don't get it. It doesn't matter if you think it was a good move or a bad move. None of that actually matters. What matters is that the relationship that Tom Thibodeau has with the players, with the assistant coaches, with the front office, that was fraying over the past couple of seasons. Mikal Bridges, who just got there, this was year 1 for him, one and done with Tibbs for Mikal Bridges. The man has played upwards of 700 or something straight NBA games. And even that man called out Tibbs for playing him too much. For someone like Mikal Bridges, who plays every night and plays a lot of minutes every night, for him to even feel like he's being pushed to the brink by the meniscus tearing taskmaster, Tom Thibodeau, that was a signal to me that there's trouble in paradise. Because we just always assume guys like Mikal Bridges normally love playing for Tibbs. When you're looking at guys like Luol Deng and Jimmy Butler and Joakim Noah, those guys laud, and Taj Gibson even, they laud playing for the meniscus tearing taskmaster, Tom Thibodeau. But when a Mikal Bridges, who is of that mold of a guy that likes to play every day, likes to play every game, likes to play every minute, when he's like, yo, dogs, we need to pull back a bit, trouble in paradise. The fact that we're talking about the front office, ownership, whoever you want to believe, whoever did it, they did it. The fact that they're saying they need a new voice in that locker room. Tibbs rides his teams hard. This is not a new thing for him. It worked in Chicago. He turned that franchise right upside down. Got them engaged, got them focused, got them locked in. He squeezed every bit of effort out of that roster, a roster that was nowhere near as talented as this current Knicks roster. And he got that team to a number 1 seed. He got that team an MVP in Derrick Rose. He got that team's identity to shift. And yet, in moments, he couldn't help himself. He is the sole reason why my Chicago Bulls fandom no longer exists. He left Derrick Rose in a game, a meaningless playoff game where the Bulls were up big in game 1 as a 1 seed facing an 8 seed. He left his star player in the game. He left his star player when his team was up double digits with only a few minutes left in the 4th. And that player went up, came down, and was never the same. Yes, I'm talking about Derrick Rose. He goes to Minnesota. He brings in one of his guys, Jimmy Butler, from Chicago to Minnesota to help enforce the shift in the culture in Minnesota. Tibbs emboldens Jimmy to be himself, like how he was in Chicago, where he did rub teammates the wrong way, but because the Bulls were winning, players ignored it. But when he went to Minnesota, a team that was not his by default, Tibbs walked in with a roster that was not his by choice. And he had younger personalities in Andrew Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns. It didn't work the same. It didn't hit the same. He couldn't find those guys that could buy into the same level as they did in Chicago and as they would after Minnesota in New York. Yet and still, he got what he could out of that roster. There was a lot of things happening around that organization behind the scenes that also didn't work in Tibbs' favor, more so with his assistant coaches like Rick Brunson, the Knicks star player's father. But it didn't work out in Minnesota, but he rode those guys hard. All those guys played a lot of minutes, fast and furious, and then those guys started to break down. Jimmy Butler's ego got out of control. Karl Anthony Towns' deficiencies began to show themselves in a myriad of ways. Andrew Wiggins' indifference began to show itself in a myriad of ways, and it began to be too much. So then Tibbs moves on. He lands in New York, his dream job. He was an assistant back in the day for Jeff Van Gundy, so he is a Knick lifer. Once a Knick, always a Knick. That's the Knick fans' laziness and tropes that they always put out there. The meniscus-tearing taskmaster was charged with turning this franchise around. A roster that was bereft of talent, a roster that was bereft of direction, was now given the sole focus of play hard every single night. You may not be the most talented. You may not be the most fundamentally sound. But what I'm going to get from you is your 100% effort every single night. When other teams are resting on their laurels, we're going to get in that ass. And we're going to steal victories that way. We're going to beat teams that we have no business beating just because in the middle of November, when no one wants to play, we're diving on the floor for loose balls. When it's after the All-Star break in February and everyone is still fresh off of whatever vacation they were on, we're on your ass getting dubs when we're not supposed to. And fans love that shit. Fans love that shit because fans love effort more than anything else. They love a gritty team. They love an underdog story. So when you add the underdog story, when you add the Knick lifer story, when you add the Knicks resurgence, when you add the Villanova Mafia, it was all trending in the direction of this is going to be the watershed moment. The Knicks went 7 games in the second round against the Indiana Pacers, and they thought to themselves, we will fix this next year. And not only will we fix this next year, but we're going to build a team that is built directly to defeat the Boston Celtics. And you know what? They actually went and did it. Now, the Celtics were hurt. There was a lot of things going on. A lot of the guys were hobbled. But it doesn't matter. When they faced the Celtics, they walked right through them. The Knicks did not think the Pacers were ever going to be a matchup that they need to take heed of. They built that roster with the sole focus of, we need to beat Boston. They assumed in putting in an influx of talent was going to out-talent the Pacers. Again, out goes DiVincenzo, out goes Julius Randle, out goes Hartenstein. You leverage all those picks for Mikal Bridges. You see him dropping 30 pieces over in Barclays. You bring him in assuming that's going to translate. You bring in the enigma that is Karl Anthony Towns. You assume that while he's played for Tibbs before, he should know what to expect. Tibbs should know how to put him in the right positions. You assumed that would be enough to not only get you past the Indianas, which you're not really paying attention to, but to directly walk through Boston. And then for the second straight postseason, you were exposed by the player you refused to draft in 2020. Tyrese Halliburton for the second straight postseason. For the second straight year, eliminating the Knicks. This time in one fewer game. He is the linchpin of all things that are wrong with the Knicks. The Knicks could not change the one thing. They can't go back in time. They can't hop in that DeLorean. They can't go in a hot tub time machine. They can't undo history. The watershed moment with the 8th pick in the 2020 draft with Tyrese Halliburton sitting right there. The Knicks took Obi Toppin. And they've been ruining that day ever since. Because as good as y'all think Jalen Brunson is, as much as y'all want to keep giving Jalen Brunson more and more praise, more and more pomp and circumstance, the fact of the matter is that every time the Pacers line up with their 12-man roster, every time the Knicks line up with their 12-man roster, Tyrese Halliburton is still the best player on the floor. And that will always be the bugaboo until things change. So as much as we're going to talk about what Tom Thibodeau should have done, who the Knicks are going to go hire, the bottom line is the players on the floor matter most. And the players are being scapegoated, or Tom Thibodeau's being scapegoated to cover for the players. Jalen Brunson failed the Knicks. Karl Anthony Towns failed the Knicks. Mikal Bridges failed the Knicks. OG Anunoby failed the Knicks. Tom Thibodeau did not fail the Knicks. And y'all know I loathe Tom Thibodeau, but I'm telling you right here, Tom Thibodeau did not fail the Knicks. Tom Thibodeau is who he always has been. Now, unfortunately, the New York media, who the New York fans listen to, they don't know ball. All they know is that Thibodeau was here during the heyday of the 90s. And again, the heyday of the 90s was a time when the Knicks were perennial losers. But because they were better than what they have been over the last 25 years, that era, that golden age of Knicks losing in the finals, Knicks losing in the Eastern Conference Finals, Knicks losing in the first and second round, perennial losers when it comes to playoff success. Again, no championship since 1973. That era has been propped up as some golden age. So because Tibbs has ties to that era, people protect him. Media protect him. Fans protect him. Because he's a link to the old time, to the golden age of getting the double nickel dropped on you. He's a link to the golden age when you choked against the Pacers. He's a link to the golden age of you getting bounced out of the playoffs year after year after year. So because of that, he's a reminder of what was once great in the Mecca, what was once great in the Garden. Tom Thibodeau is who he always has been. He was the same in Chicago, he was the same in Minnesota, and he was the same here with the Knicks. He runs teams into the ground hard and fast. Tom Thibodeau will never be a coach that lasts 10 years at a place. Not with his coaching style. But Knicks fans were under the impression that they were so close. Knicks fans are under the impression that Thibodeau would be the coach to take him over the hump, to finally break that 50-year gap of not winning a chip. But how could he be when he has a roster that is mismanaged in the first place? How do you fix a roster that was built by a brain trust that is all in from CAA, the sports agency? Leon Rose runs the Knicks. He's a former agent from CAA. Tibbs is a former client of his. That's how Tibbs got the gig. Jalen Brunson's on this team because Rick Brunson, Jalen Brunson's daddy, is mans with Tibbs because Tibbs was an assistant coach on the Knicks when Rick Brunson was a player back in the day. It's all nepotism in Knick land. That's the only shocking part to me, is that someone from the CAA brain trust was let go. But the name we keep hearing to potentially overtake and take over the job from the meniscus tearing taskmaster Tom Thibodeau is Mike Malone. And would you like to guess what agency Mike Malone is repped? Would you like to guess what agency reps Mike Malone? You would be correct. CAA. So is anything actually going to change? Because that's the real thing to me. People are saying, well, Shams is saying the Knicks want a new voice. Do you think Mike Malone's voice and Tom Thibodeau's voice are that different? Do you really feel in your hearts of hearts, like the Nuggets have openly talked about how Mike Malone ran them too hard? And Mike Malone was not trusting of certain players and was leaning on the vets. How's that any different than what the meniscus tearing taskmaster Tom Thibodeau did with the Knicks? So instead of playing his guys 40 minutes a night, Mike Malone's going to play him 38? What's going to be the difference if it is Mike Malone? Mike Malone is repped by CAA just like Tom Thibodeau, which means the Leon Rose connection is still there, which means the Knicks are still a CAA hotbed. You cannot trade Karl-Anthony Towns. If Mike Malone is the guy, is he going to retain Rick Brunson? And if he retains Rick Brunson, then that means Jalen Brunson is still the dude. And if Jalen Brunson is still the dude, then what exactly did you change? Because as much as people could like Mike Malone, he's a local kid. He's from Queens, so salute to that. Queens get the money. But in the basketball sense, what system has Mike Malone installed? His system in Denver was give it to Jokic, give it to Jamal Murray, and everyone else get the hell out the way. So what exactly changes with the Knicks if Mike Malone is the choice? What exactly changes with the Knicks if one CAA coach gets fired, but they hire another CAA coach to take his place? What exactly changed today with the Knicks? You're swapping out one CAA coach for another? You're swapping one hard-nosed coach that likes to run his players into the ground for another? Then how does that voice change in the Mecca? How does that voice change in the locker room? Y'all tell me. The chat is open. Y'all tell me. But what I see here is a scapegoat for the player that probably is most responsible, Jalen Brunson, because it's not Karl-Anthony Towns. Y'all knew who Karl-Anthony Towns was from the beginning, or at least let me change that. If you watch ball If you watch basketball, you would know what Karl Anthony Towns was and has been for the entirety of his career. So nothing should shock you with his performance in the playoffs. I got the numbers here. If we're talking about what the Knicks have done, and we can get into that series against the Pacers, right? Let's get into this series with the Pacers. Series summary, okay? We'll get to some of these advanced numbers specifically, but let's get into just straight up and down. Karl Anthony Towns, 25 points, 12 rebounds, right? 50% from the floor, 37% from three. Those sound like amazing numbers, right? On the surface, if I told you in the Eastern Conference Finals, Karl Anthony Towns was shooting 37% from three, shot 50% from the floor, played 35 minutes a night, gave you 25 and 12, you would feel like Cat played up to his ability. But that's why we look at more than just the generic, straightforward points per game, the box score stats. We look at the advanced stats, okay? Karl Anthony Towns. Offensive rating, 119. That's very good. If you don't know offensive rating and how to judge it, anything above, the higher you are above 100, the better you are offensively, the better you are at impacting your team's ability to score, right? So a 119, that's very good. However, look at this defensive rating number. That's a 118. Now, just like the higher the number, the better you are offensively, it's exactly the reverse of that with the defensive rating. You start at 100, and the higher the number, the worse you are defensively. Karl Anthony Towns was a 118 defensive rating. So he was almost a wash on the court. He was almost as impactful offensively. He was just slightly more impactful offensively in a good way as he was defensively in a bad way. And then you get into Jalen Brunson. Again, if you just look at the straight raw data, and I tell you Jalen Brunson in the Eastern Conference Finals averaged 31 points, 6 dimes, shot 35% from three and 50% from the floor, you would think the Knicks would walk through any other team in the league if their top two players are giving you those numbers. However, again, we look past the generic box score, we go to the analytics, we go to the advanced data, 121 offensive rating. That's really good, even better than Karl Anthony Towns. But that defensive rating, 123. Bruh, you know how bad 123 is as a defensive rating? That's Luka territory. That's Luka Doncic territory. 123 defensive rating. And since we're here, let's look at that usage rate. I've gotten into a lot of debates about how Jalen Brunson, how good of a point guard Jalen Brunson is. First of all, he's not a point guard, and these numbers will dictate that. But let's just assume that you think Jalen Brunson's a point guard. I just told you that man averaged 6 assists over a 6-game series, right? 34% usage rate. That's extremely ball dominant, okay? Extremely ball dominant. 34%. That's up there with Luka. That's up there with Bron. That's up there with peak Beard. Ball dominant guards usually are around this territory, 34%. That means the ball is in your hands a lot. That means you're calling your own number a lot. That means you're taking the shot a lot. But again, Jalen Brunson is supposed to be considered a point guard. At least that's what I keep being told. Yet and still, his usage rate is 34%. Now let's go look at Tyrese Halliburton, who to me is the best point guard in the sport. And he showed that in this conference finals against the Knicks. Tyrese Halliburton, 21 points, 6 rebounds, 10 and a half. We round up on this live stream and this podcast, 11 assists. So 21, 11, and 6 for Tyrese Halliburton. He shot 33% from 3 and 46% from the floor. So just by those raw numbers, Brunson destroyed Tyrese Halliburton in everything except assists. Tyrese Halliburton got smoked by Jalen Brunson if you just look at these raw, generic numbers. But we don't do that here because we know ball. Let's go to the advanced metrics. A 126 offensive rating for Tyrese Halliburton. So he best Jalen Brunson in offensive rating. Not only did he best him in offensive rating, he destroyed him in defensive rating. A 112 defensive rating for Tyrese Halliburton. And then you see this number over here, this usage rate, 25% usage rate. So you're telling me the guy that I've been told is a point guard has a 34% usage rate, but can only average 6 assists in a 6-game series. But Tyrese Halliburton averages damn near double that assist number and does it at a much less usage rate, a much lower usage rate. Yet you're trying to tell me Jalen Brunson is a better point guard than Tyrese Halliburton. Make it make sense, please. Someone out there, make it make sense to me. Tyrese Halliburton is out here giving you 11 dimes a game with a 25% usage rate. Jalen Brunson is out here being ball dominant, being a black hole, holding on to the ball too damn much, taking his own shot too damn much at 34% usage rate, and he can only give you 6 assists a game? Again, make it make sense. This is why Tom Thibodeau's fired, because the better player on the floor, who's able to outdo the production that really matters. What should matter more? Is it more impactful for Tyrese Halliburton to make sure that Pascal Siakam is cooking, to make sure that Aaron Nesmith is cooking, to make sure that, Mathurin, when he comes off the bench, is cooking, Nembhard, Mal Turner is cooking? Or is it better for Jalen Brunson to ISO himself into a frenzy, which puts Mikal Bridges, who you moved heaven and earth for, to have a 103 offensive rating? A 103 offensive rating. Mikal Bridges, your prized, next to Cat, your prized off-season acquisition. A 103 offensive rating for Mikal Bridges. And a 121 defensive rating. You would want that to be flipped. You would expect that to be flipped. When the Knicks made the move and gave up all them picks for Mikal Bridges because his contract is cheap. It ain't cheap no more. He's about to get an extension. But for this 1 year, it was for the low. Brooklyn fleeced the Knicks, by the way. But, because it's the Knicks, they got resurgence. It was worth it. You're about to get fleeced. You're about to get fleeced because now you got to pay for Mikal Bridges, and he's out here giving you a 103 offensive rating in the Eastern Conference Finals. And Mike Malone and no other coach is going to change that because you fell for it. You fell for a guy who was just getting buckets on a trash team, and you moved heaven and earth to give up all these picks to go get him, and then he comes to your squad, and he gives you a 103 offensive rating. I don't want to hear it, Knicks tape. I don't want to hear it. You got fleeced. But Knicks tape coming into this season would have thought these numbers would be reversed, where Mikal Bridges would have a 121 offensive rating and a 103 defensive rating because he's supposed to be one of them. Unfortunately, it happened in this way where he has a 103 offensive rating and a 121 defensive rating. OG Anunoby, another one that was supposed to be one of those guys, one of those dogs on defense, one of those wing stops. 116 offensive rating. That's solid. Slightly above average. A 115 defensive rating. You're supposed to be one of them ones. UN Bridges and Josh Hart, wing stop. What happened? Mitchell Robinson, all the pomp, all the circumstance, he affects the game so much. You know, the TV analysts couldn't stop gushing over Mitch Rob. The fans couldn't stop screaming and clamoring for Mitch Rob because of his impact on the floor. And this 146 offensive rating is a number that is stupendous for a guy that gets a lot of minutes, or at least enough minutes. This is not an admiration. He was that impactful. Like you see this Landry Shamet 138, that's an anomaly. That's a numerical admiration. This 146 with Mitch Rob, because of all the offensive chances he creates for his teammates, that's how his number gets bloated like this. But this defensive rating, this 113, that's below average for a guy like him. So what happened to him? Again, the Tibbs resume is this guy will have your team playing so much better defense. I've really only seen it in Chicago. None of these Knicks teams over these 5 years, maybe the first 2 years, he was able to get better defense out of those first 2 years. But when the team got to be good, the team stopped being great defensively. And that's the thing with Tibbs. Once he comes in, the easiest thing for him to fix is your effort. And your effort is best shown where? On defense. So once you get players to buy in the effort department, the defense is by proxy naturally going to get better. But then when you're now expected to win games, now you need to score. And guess what? When you need to score, that takes a lot of effort. So guess what now falls off when you're trying to now exert effort to score, because now you're expected to win? The defense. And that's been the meniscus tearing taskmaster Tom Thibodeau's credo everywhere he's gone. That's the way it's been. This is why the meniscus tearing taskmaster was fired. It's not because he was running them into the ground. It's not because he was playing them too much minutes. It's because the team that he was given, the team that he helped orchestrate, is just not good enough. It's not that his voice was too much in the locker room. It's not that they got tired of his voice. It's not any of that. It's just this roster is not good enough. And to make changes, I've been saying this. If you go here on this YouTube channel, I got a video just last week talking about this. If you're going to make changes, it has to be wholesale changes, because there's too much nepotism intertwined here. But if the Knicks think all they need to do is change Tom Thibodeau and that's going to be the solve, that's what's going to get them over the hump next year, they're foolish. In my opinion, today, June 3rd, 2025, they're foolish. I have seen this movie before because I actually watch more than the teams that are in my market. I watch the entire NBA. So I saw this thing with Tibbs in Chicago. I saw what it was in Minnesota. The problem is that the bulk of the people commentating on the Knicks right now are purely just Knicks fans or Knicks media people who only know the Knicks. Their bubble is only embodied by the Mecca. This team lost to the Pacers 2 straight years and lost to them in a worse fashion this year with a more talented, more skilled team than the team last year with Dante DiVincenzo, Hartenstein, and Julius Randle. What changed? The coaching didn't. The thing that changed was the players. So while I can find fault with the meniscus tearing taskmaster because it's easy, the bottom line is that the brain trust of the Knicks, Leon Rose, Scott Perry used to be there, he's gone. But the brain trust of the Knicks, which is CAA laden, went out there and made the move for Mikal Bridges and gave up, 4 picks, 4 or 5 unprotected first-round picks? That team made the big move, the huge move, the blockbuster move of getting DiVincenzo and Julius Randle up out of there and bringing in Karl Anthony Towns. They let Hartenstein walk because they believed that Mitch Rob was going to be healthy enough to last a whole season. Those are the reasons why they lost to the Pacers in 6. Not Tom Thibodeau. And I'm not here to say that he shouldn't have been fired. What I'm saying is that the reasons you're going to hear why he was fired are inaccurate. The reasons you're going to hear of why the meniscus tearing taskmaster Tom Thibodeau was gone will be incorrect. Because you're telling me right here, is it Tom Thibodeau or was it Jalen Brunson out here with a 123 defensive rating? What was the problem there? Was it Tom Thibodeau or was it Pascal Siakam putting up 30 pieces in every victory? Was it Tom Thibodeau or was it Mikal Bridges being a 103 offensive rating? Make it make sense, man. Make it make sense. This right here is going to be a thing with this Knicks tape thing because you're going to get all types of hyperbole, all types of, fanfare in regards to what should they do, what can they do, who's next to be moved. If this was a James Dolan call that's being, bantied about between old radio hosts who are now on the interwebs like us, if this is actually a thing and James Dolan made the call, then guess what, James? You got a few more calls to make because you now need to get rid of Leon Rose and you now need to make sure that Rick Brunson does not come back in any capacity. Okay, that's what's left. The brain trust was Thibodeau, Scott Perry, Leon Rose. That was the triumphant. That was the connection. Scott Perry was not brought back. He's gone. I think he's in Sacramento now. Now you're getting rid of Thibodeau. That means the last one standing is Leon Rose. And Leon Rose is the orchestrator of it all, him and World Wide West. So if that's the case, if you're James Dolan and you're making the call that, hey, we didn't retain Scott Perry, we're firing Thibodeau, the last one left is Leon Rose. Leon Rose got some splaining to do. And it's not just one move you can make that could wash this all away. The only way, if this really was a James Dolan thing, is now you need to get rid of Leon Rose. I think Dolan is scared to do that, though. I think Dolan, or at least maybe not scared, he probably has trepidations about doing so. Because then that puts the onus, that puts the responsibility directly back on him. But now if it was Leon Rose alone, then that makes me think he's just going to wipe away one CAA client for another. And that's where the Mike Malone stuff comes in front and center. If Mike Malone is the coach or any other coach, if they have any CAA ties, then that tells me Leon Rose is still in charge. Dolan's not meddling. It's 100% Leon Rose. But if now Leon Rose is about the paint, if Rick Brunson is not brought back in any capacity, then that might tell me, oh, James Dolan's back in the mix. James Dolan's finger is now back on the button. He's the one now. This Nick thing is a lie. This Nick thing is a lie. Nick fans are still happy. And I think that that's the mixed bag. Who is the Johnny that you want? Hopefully it's not St. John's. We don't rock with St. John's on this side. I think it's Mike Malone. I think it's Mike Malone. We'll see, though. But in regards to this list right here should tell you it all, right? This list right here says it all. This is a very low bar of entry. Tom Thibodeau was the best of a bad bunch. Okay, Mike Woodson, he took them to 160-win season. They were the 2 seed. People forget about that because it's not sexy enough, and that was the Melo era, and the Melo era is being conveniently wiped away out of Knicks history. We're talking about the D'Antoni era with Lynn Sanity. He was a sub-500 coach. I mean, this is what we're talking about here. This is Knick lineage. Again, no chips since 1973. But if let's try to switch it up. Let's give Knick fans some hope, right? Let's give Knicks tape some hope. Knick fans, I am here. I'm about to give you some hope. Let's bring it back to, the Obama days, and the key word is going to be hope. The slogan is going to be hope for next year, because there is a stat that's floating around that Knicks fans should look upon as a sign of hope for next year. And maybe this might be some impetus as to why Tom Thibodeau was fired. Let's go ahead and get into it. So, as a matter of fact, let's switch up the look. Since 2022, okay, so very big sample size, 3 seasons, right? But and still, since 2022, every team that lost in the Eastern Conference Finals proceeded to the NBA Finals the very next year. Okay, so let's get down to it. 2022 Eastern Conference Finals, the Heat lose, they make it to the finals in 2023. Celtics lose the Conference Finals in 2023 to make it to the finals in 2024. Pacers lost in the Eastern Conference Finals last year after walking through the Knicks in the second round in 7. Now they make it to the NBA Finals this year. Does that mean that the Knicks, who lost in the conference finals this year, are now going to make the NBA Finals next year? Knicks tape, you got to have hope. So send that out to the Knicks fan in your life. Send that out to the Knicks shill in your life. Hey, don't worry about it. Next year, you're going to make the finals. Why do you say that? Well, there's a stat. The last 3 losers in the Eastern Conference Finals have gone on to make the finals the very next year. There's your hope, Knicks tape. I'm still Chief Knick hater #1, but even I am trying to build a bridge here because I think Tom Thibodeau is being scapegoated. Even I'm trying to give you some hope tonight. Mike Malone, the kid from Queens, getting a chance to coach the Knicks. So obviously everyone is going to be jumping in, having their takes, having their opinions. There's been a lot of bad takes already. I think ultimately you have to look at this in one of 2 ways. When it comes to the meniscus tearing taskmaster, Tom Thibodeau, we need to focus on a few things. He ran that team into the ground, but he's done it at every stop. He is who he is. It's like Doc Rivers. You face a Doc Rivers team, it's going to be a team that you know is going to blow leads. It's going to be a team that you know, even when you're up, even when you're down 3-1, you know you have a shot. Even when you're down 2-0 or 2-1 against a Doc Rivers team, you still have hope because you know you have a shot. Certain teams always carry the characteristics of their coach. And the Knicks are no different than the Timberwolves, who were no different than the Bulls. Thibodeau comes in. He immediately changes the culture by getting players to overexert themselves and play the hardest they've ever played. Once that wears out, you now have to enhance the talent around that team. You can't just out-effort your way to a Larry O.B. As much as, see, that's the thing, right? That's the funny thing about the Tibbs experience. When has the Tibbs experience ever worked? And by worked, I mean win a championship. I know he was an assistant with Boston, but that was the sum of its parts. That was the quality of the players they had. I mean, they had 3 Hall of Famers in the starting lineup. That had more to do with that than the Tibbs defensive philosophy, right? That Bulls team was never going to win a championship. As much as I think Derrick Rose, if he never got hurt, was going to be one of them ones, was going to be a Hall of Famer, was going to be a multiple-time MVP, I don't know if that style was going to be enough to win a Larry O.B. That team in Minnesota had no chance of winning a championship. It was bad chemistry, a bad mix of players, bad generational gaps. It was all the way bad. And then this Knicks thing, it was the same credo like Chicago. He squeezed every ounce out of a very talentless roster. And then when the roster got to be good and you bring in better players aren't going to overexert themselves like that bunch that wasn't as talented. Like if we want to go through the Knicks rosters under Tom Thibodeau, let's go ahead and do that, right? Let's go to year 1. Okay. Year 1, Tom Thibodeau. This roster got to be 41-31, and they finished 4th in the East. Let's look at this roster. You talking about a Reggie Bullock, a Alec Burks, a Taj Gibson, again, another Tibbs-alite. Let me blow up the screen here. Stand by. All right, cool. So now, let me blow it up for y'all. This is who he has on this roster, right? Julius Randle, R.J. Barrett, Reggie Bullock. We're talking about Elfrid Payton, Nerlens Noel. Like, these are the guys getting major run. So, yes, he's going to squeeze every bit out of that roster, right? He's got a couple of Tibbs-alites and Derrick Rose and Taj Gibson here, some Bulls retreads. He's got Obi Toppin, who was a rook. Like a very mosh-posh roster. Again, wherever Tibbs goes, he makes sure to have a couple of old Bulls players to make sure to kind of confirm the messaging that he's passing down, that it gets down to the guys that are new to the system. He did the same thing in Minnesota, where you had Taj Gibson, even had Derrick Rose there. Run it back again. Bring him to the Knicks now. Bring over Taj Gibson. Bring over Derrick Rose. Instill my system, instill my work ethic. When these guys are complaining, be the voices in the locker room that says it's going to work out in the long run. Just buy in. I mean, you look at this roster. Mitch Robb is the only person left from when Tibbs first got there. Mitch Robb is literally the only person left. So year 1, you squeeze out everything you can from a roster that's not that great. Okay, 41-31, 4th in the East. You fall back to earth a little bit. 37-45. But again, look at this roster. You still got RJ, still got Taj, now you got Evan Fournier. Still got Alex Burks. But now you got Cam Reddish. Still got Derrick Rose, but now you got Kemba Walker. So again, the roster upheaval is in progress. They're still trying to figure it out and get to a place where they don't have to keep out-efforting teams to get W's. Then they go and make the deal. They go and make the deal for Jalen Brunson, 47-35, 5th in the East. Now you got Jalen Brunson. He's the guy now. Now you got Josh Hart. You got that Villanova connection. Now you got Hartenstein. You still got Randall. Still got RJ. You're trying to figure out if this is now the grouping. You realize that's probably not the grouping. So next year, 50-32, 2 seed in the East. Now you got Precious Achiuwa. Now you go make the in-season trade for OG. So now that roster is starting to come into place. You still got RJ, but you're trying to figure it out. and then you flip RJ to go get OG. But the main thing is you have discovered your guy in Jalen Brunson, but you now have a deficiency because he is not a defensive player at all. So now you need to figure it out. RJ Barrett was not a defensive player at all, so you go get OG. But now you have two guys that are black holes offensively with Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson sharing the floor together. That's not going to work. So what do? The next year as a 2 seed. So now you're figuring out, you're doing this with a 2 seed. You're figuring it out with Precious Achiuwa getting minutes. You're figuring this out with Malachi Flynn getting minutes. With Taj Gibson still hanging on, the ageless one, with Quentin Grimes getting minutes. So now you go make the bigger deal. 51-31, third in the East. 3 seed in the East, and now you got Mikal Bridges, Villanova Mafia. So now you have Bridges, OG, Josh Hart. You go get Karl Anthony Towns, self-proclaimed best shooting big man in NBA history. But now you have a problem. He don't play defense, and Jalen Brunson don't play defense. Well, you try to balance that out with, we got these 3 other guys who play defense, and then if we really want to go big, we can move Josh Hart out of there and put Mitch Robb in there and get even more defense. But it doesn't work like that now, does it? It doesn't matter if you put Mitch Robb and Karl Anthony Towns together, you're still going to have defensive deficiencies. And I've been on this live stream showing you in real time, breaking down defensive lapses by cat during that Pacer series. Now this roster is expected to win. But the trade-off in terms of getting more talented players is that you're going to lose defensive prowess. You figure Jalen Brunson, you handed Jalen Brunson the keys. That man don't play defense. You make a big swing and trade DiVincenzo and Julius Randle and let Hartenstein walk to all make room for Karl Anthony Towns. And that man don't play defense either. But none of that should have been a surprise if you actually watched ball. So clearly the Knicks made a choice. The Knicks and their brain trust made a choice that to them it doesn't matter. They are going to trade the offensive upgrades for defensive downgrades. But when your coach is known for defensive acumen, that kind of defeats the point of having a defensive-minded head coach now, doesn't it? If you look at the Knicks defensive rating, they were middle of the pack this year, 14th. Middle of the pack. So again, they improved in offensive rating as a team and got worse defensive rating from the year before. 5th last year in offensive rating, 7th the year before. 10th in defensive rating the year before, 14th this past year. So again, you're making offensive upgrades, but suffering defensive downgrades. That's the trade that the Knicks did. And yet I'm supposed to believe that's all the meniscus tearing Taskmaster's fault. When it's clear as day, you chose offense over defense. To walk through the Boston Celtics, you chose to choose offense over defense. But yet and still, the biggest mistake you've made is that with the 8th pick of the 2020 NBA draft, you took Obi Toppin when Tyrese Halliburton was right there. You talk about a franchise-changing decision. If the Knicks take Tyrese Halliburton there, is Jalen Brunson even a starter anywhere? Because he proved he can't play with a real star player in Dallas. Jalen Brunson needs the ball. He needs to be the number one to do what he does best, which is score and be ball dominant. It didn't work with Luka. It wasn't working prior anywhere else. If the Knicks take Halliburton, is Jalen Brunson even a name we know today? How much better would the Knicks be off if they would have taken Tyrese Halliburton instead of Obi Toppin? Because you take Obi Toppin, you realize that's a mistake. Now you have to compound that mistake by getting rid of Obi Toppin and taking whatever you can back. And now you still have a gaping hole at point guard. So now you have to go out there and via nepotism, go get the assistant coach's son and hand him the keys. And while it worked to a certain degree, while it has worked to get your franchise back to relevance, while it has led a resurgence, what the ultimate end game is to win a championship. And handing the keys to Jalen Brunson, making Jalen Brunson the man, making Jalen Brunson the one, that's just never going to get it done. That's never going to hoist up a Larry O.B. If your best player, and let me change that, if your most important player is Jalen Brunson, you're not winning a championship. The Knicks' best player is Karl Anthony Towns. Hard stop. But the Knicks' most important player, by their own design, is Jalen Brunson. Now, maybe Mike Malone or whoever else comes into the Mecca and changes that. Maybe they go out there and get a real point guard and they move Jalen Brunson off the ball and let him become a bootleg Allen Iverson. To me, that's highly unlikely. But if the Knicks want to see success, it's not the coaching that has to change. It's the roster construction. And it's not Karl Anthony Towns' fault. It's the player that you had to spin the block on after you tricked off not drafting Tyrese Halliburton. Jalen Brunson, as good as he is offensively, is just of a black hole defensively. I mentioned the stat a couple of pods ago during after Game 4 of Pacers-Knicks. Through 7 games last year in the playoffs, the Pacers only they only hunted Jalen Brunson on pick and rolls about 32 times. Through 4 games in the Eastern Conference Finals, the Pacers had already tripled that number. I'm just saying, man. Sometimes you just need to look things in the eye and just be real with what's happening. And the Knicks have nobody to blame but the players themselves and not the meniscus tearing taskmaster, Tom Thibodeau. And trust me, I can't believe I'm saying these words. Because if you've been a fan of this YouTube channel or even the podcast, you know how I feel about this dude. And I'm still not saying he should not have been fired. I just want to make sure the messaging is accurate and the language is accurate in what actually happened with the Knicks. The Pacers did not defeat the Knicks because of the meniscus tearing taskmaster Tom Thibodeau. The Pacers defeated the Knicks because they had better players and they were a better overall team from top to bottom in terms of roster construction than the New York Knicks. And while Tom Thibodeau played a part in that, he is not the sole culprit in that. But because everything now, you have to have a take, you have to have an opinion, you have to stand 10 toes on something, even if you're loud and wrong, you still got to stand on it. The narratives are going to come flying. Tom Thibodeau was fired because somebody had to be the scapegoat. You can't trade Karl Anthony Towns yet. You're not going to move off of Jalen Brunson because his father is still tied to the team in some capacity. Leon Rose is the leader of this organization from a front office POV. James Dolan is still the owner, but in terms of after James Dolan, it's Leon Rose. Leon Rose, I believe, got his mans about the paint. But if you're going to get your mans about the paint, let's play it out, right? Let's say Dolan told Leon Rose, hey, man, we need to move on from Tibbs. And he probably pushed back on that. Like, no, Tibbs is my guy. Look what he's done. He's turned his franchise around. People believe we're resurgent, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But if the owner is telling you, yeah, that's cool and all, but yeah, I don't like him. He needs to go. Then if you're Leon Rose, you need to tell the owner, all right, cool, I'll fire him. I'll fire him. Even though you hired me and I hired him, I'll fire him. But you see my man's Mike Malone, though. If you let me hire my man's Mike Malone, I got no problem firing the meniscus tearing taskmaster Tom Thibodeau. One CAA coach out, potentially another CAA coach in. What's actually changed in Knickland? You tell me. I told you I'm here for a good time, not a long time. We'll wrap it up there. If you have anything in the chat, go ahead and I'll give you a couple of minutes to get whatever you want off in the chat. If not, then I will bid you a good night. I'll put this audio up for the podcast audience. Tap into the CMD podcast. The link is in the live stream description. If you're new here, I go by the name of The CMD. I am a 15-year plus sports media veteran. I say all the things your favorites can't and won't say. So if you want to know more about sports from a sports media lens, or if you want to know more about sports media and how the inner workings of that works, go ahead and tap in, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and all that good stuff. I appreciate all of those who were able to pull up. I see we got some viewers in here. Go ahead and hit that like button as we wrap up the stream. NBA Finals start on Thursday. I will have a video dropping, I don't know about tomorrow. Probably, well, it's definitely before Thursday, okay? So that means I have all day tomorrow. We'll be doing it live. We'll be dropping a video, a preview of the NBA Finals, Oklahoma City and the Indiana Pacers. We'll have that dropping here on the channel. So if you want to tap in, go ahead and subscribe, turn the bell on for notifications so you'll get notified of when that video drops. And like I do every year, we're going to be doing live stream watch-alongs of every NBA Finals game, schedule permitting, my gigs, schedule permitting as well. So again, just if you want to just get tapped in and get immersed into the CMD content, go ahead and subscribe and tap in. All right? I appreciate y'all for tapping in to the live stream. I'm going to holla at y'all probably tomorrow with some NBA Finals preview. All right. Peace.